This is Tommy Sherbel and David Mitchell with the Civil Engineering 594R class, Geoinformatics. Today we are going to describe the website that we have made. What we were asked to do was identify 16 events with a known time and place, and create geolocated spatial data sets and appropriate attribute information for each event. And then we were supposed to build an interactive web mapping application that allows users to explore each event through a map interface and a timeline selector. So what we chose to do was the building of the first 16 or 17 temples in the latter days. So our website is www.templosdelmundosud.com. That's just Temples of the World for LDS, all in Spanish, and then .com. When it originally loads, here we can do that. It kind of looks like this, and for some reason we don't know why it's not totally loading. So you just have to move it and then select on the date, even though it kind of disappears, and it's there. Here is our first decade. This is when the saints were living in Kirtland, Ohio, and you can tell where the church headquarters is by the state that is highlighted, and then the temple was made here where it is pink. We can click on the temple and it shows what the temple is. It's currently owned and operated by the Community of Christ, and then that's when it was announced, constructed, and dedicated. As you click on down the decades, this changes it so you can see that at the beginning of the 1840s, the church was headquartered in Illinois/Missouri, but we put in Illinois. And then by the end of the 1840s, the pioneers started taking the long trek over to Salt Lake, which when you click in 1850, you can see that the headquarters is now in Salt Lake, and people are still migrating over to Salt Lake for the next couple decades. We can also click on the trail, and it shows all about the Mormon Trail, and that is courtesy of Wikipedia. Thank you, Wikipedia. Once we get the next temple built, it was St. George in 1871. Was when it was announced, and it was dedicated in 1877. So the maps just continues to run. The next two temples that were built were Logan in 1884 and Manti in 1888. The next temple built was Salt Lake Temple.
This is kind of repetitive, but that's kind of the overall desire for this project, that we just keep showing the dedication of the next temple.
Nothing really happened in the 1900 to 1910, but then in the 1910s, I guess, in 1919, the Laie Hawaii Temple was dedicated. You can see that that was in 1919. And so now the map has zoomed out, and the headquarters is still in Utah, but you can also see that Hawaii was built. In the next few years, we got the Mesa, Arizona Temple and the Karsten, Alberta, Canada temple. And no temples were made in the 1930s, but in the 1940s we have the Idaho Falls Temple that was built, and that was in 1945. In the 1950s, we kind of have to go worldwide here. We get the Bern Temple, and then we get the London Temple, and we get also the Hamilton, New Zealand Temple. In the 1960s, we get LA and Oakland Temple. In the 1970s, this is the same thing. For some reason, it just needs to be moved. I don't really understand why, but then we can go in and look at the last two that we chose to show, and that is the Provo Temple, which was dedicated in 1972, and the Ogden Temple. So David's just going to explain our code here, and here we go.
All right, so let's take a look at what's going on behind the scenes with the code. As you can see here, we're just telling whatever browser you're using, what is the character set, and also what to put on the little website tab. That is this little thing right here. It just says put Templos Del Mundo SUD on that, and just give it some style. Next thing we're going to do is say we're going to use the open layers JavaScript that has been provided, is currently on our server, as you can see right here. It's just basically telling the browser where to find that. And then we're saying that when we run the script function, what we're doing is just running some JavaScript here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to define some global variables for use throughout the entire project. We're going to define map, WMS, the select control, latitude and longitude, all of the temples, as well as each of the individual state maps that can be seen right here. What this is doing is just declaring a bunch of variables that we're going to be using throughout the project, but it does it outside of each of the functions so that we can keep using them throughout the entire project. Next thing we do is we define the function init. This is a function that will run as soon as the user loads up our web page. So to kind of step inside, because this is a rather lengthy function, what we do is we define what the variable map and WMS are, as well as Kirtland. And this is going to look really repetitive, but basically what we're doing is we're telling the browser where our KML file is located and basically how to read it, and then it just defining it as the various variables for the temples or the maps or the Mormon Trail.
So what we do is we just define Kirtland, Bern, Cardston, Hamilton, Idaho Falls, Laie, Logan, London, Los Angeles, Manti, Mesa, Nauvoo, Oakland, Ogden, Provo, Salt Lake, St. George, and the Mormon Exodus Trail.
All of them, with the exception of the Mormon Exodus Trail, are simply points on the map, and they're all relatively the same except for the location of the KML file and the name that is displayed on the open layers map. What we'll do is we'll open up the KML so you kind of get a general idea of what one of them looks like. Let's open up Kirtland. So basically what we're doing, this is all written in HTML format, is the first thing that you're going to do is define the KML file name. And what this is just basically when you open it up on our in your browser, it's just what appears here, basically so the user knows what it is. The next thing is we're going to define a place mark. All of this right here is what is going to appear in your pop-up window. This line right here just basically tells the browser, hey, I want to put a picture of the temple there, and this is where it's located. Also, it enables the user that should they desire to click on the picture, it will actually take them to this website. And once again, everything here in orange is basically metadata that will show up in the pop-up. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to tell the browser, hey, use a style URL, which is going to tell OpenLayers how to display your data, and also where the data is located on the map. And this is just a point, so it's just one coordinate. Close the place mark, and then they need to know exactly what type of style it is. In this case, we use the style temple, and basically just tells the browser right here where they can find that SVG file, which is just a picture of a pink temple. Sets the necessary scaling and closes the KML file. So that's your basic KML, and they're pretty much all relatively the same. This next set of code just defines all the maps, and it's the exact same format.
So right here we have map corresponding to 1830, 1840, 1850, 1860, 1870, 1880, 1890, 1900, 1910, 1920, 1930, 1940, 1950, 1960, 1970.
Because we decided to use a Bing base map, it requires the use of an API key that we had to get and receive from Microsoft. This is just basically where we're defining what the API key is. Define the Bing base map layer right here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add all of our layers as well as our base map to the map. So in the browser, we're adding everything to the map located right here, just so it's there when the user decides to use the buttons later on.
After we've added all of the base map and the camera files to the map, we need to create something called a layer switcher, which enables the user to switch between layers. So we just use that using the add control function.
What we need to do is tell the browser what to do in the event that one of these layers is selected. Here's the layers that we made selectable. We chose not to have the state outline selectable because it's pretty much obvious what those states are. Right here is where we enable those layers to be selected using a variable called select control, and then we activate it. Create a bunch of event listeners. So basically what it is if the user decides to click on one of these temples here, it'll do something, and then when they don't click on it, it'll do something else. Thing right here just adds a scale bar to the map. That's just this right here. That is a dynamic scale bar. Next little bit is a navigation. This enables the user to have the zoom in and zoom out, as well as panning with the mouse. Next thing we're going to do is define a map center as well as a zoom level. At startup, we decided to only show the map corresponding to 1960, and that's just where we do it right here. And then we say zoom to max extent. The next function that we do is on pop-up close event. In the event that the user clicks this little red box, it will close the pop-up. On feature unselect, so in the event that the user has this pop-up box open and they select something else, it will close. The next thing we do is we create the actual pop-up window. We ended up having to put the variable feature right here as a global variable just because it kept crashing. The next thing is quite long. It's a function that sets the temple, and that interacts with each of these radio buttons that are right here. It just basically tells the browser what to do in the event that any of these radio buttons are clicked. Once again, there's a lot of redundancy in this, and basically what it's doing is telling the browser what layers to show and what layers not to, as well as what to zoom to on the map. And you can see here in the comments, in case the user chooses 1830, which is the first one, to only show the Kirtland and map corresponding to 1830, as well as to zoom to the map. So we close the script and we close the head. The next thing we do is we go into the body. We tell it on load to load the init function, load the background color is yellow. This is the header, which just says Templos Del Mundo SUD, and that's just this part of the map right here. The next thing we do is we create a navigation bar, equally spaced, that will navigate to the main home page, an info page, as well as the Mormon.org page. The next thing we do is we create the map. Just give it some real estate. Say take 75% of the map, starting from the right, and that's just this here.
The next thing we do is we create a left navigation bar that takes up 25% of the real estate there. Just gives the user some data that says the map highlights the state where the headquarters of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is located for the decade selected using the various radio buttons that are listed below. These are the radio buttons, and there's basically these right here.
Next thing we do is we close the form and we close the HTML. The last little bit that Tommy didn't show is the info page. Alright, well, thank you for listening to our video, and have a great day.